There's one sentence no football federation should ever have to say during a World Cup. Yet this past Friday, Iran's national team said exactly that. We are the most oppressed team in this tournament. That's not a frustrated fan posting online. That's not a pundit chasing clicks. Those words came from Amir Galanway, Iran's head coach, describing what his team says it has faced at the 2026 World Cup. And it didn't stop there. In the days that followed, Iran's Football Federation took the rare step of filing a formal complaint against the very organization overseeing the competition. A team that earned its place on football's biggest stage is now locked in a dispute that has sparked debate far beyond the pitch. So what exactly happened? How did it get to this point? And what does it reveal about a World Cup already surrounded by controversy? Let's break it all down. The situation Iran is describing is unlike anything seen at previous World Cups. According to Iranian sports officials, U.S. authorities have imposed strict travel conditions on the national team. Under those rules, the squad can reportedly enter the country no more than 24 hours before kickoff and must leave shortly after the match is completed. Just 24 hours before a World Cup game. That's the entire window Iran's players have to prepare on American soil before competing in one of the biggest sporting events in the world. Now compare that to the preparation every other team normally receives. Most national teams arrive 2 or even 3 days before a major match. That extra time allows players to recover from travel, train on local fields, adjust to the climate, adapt to time zones, and settle into their surroundings. At this level, that preparation isn't a luxury. It's a standard part of competing at the highest level of international football. Iran says it doesn't have access to that same advantage. Because of ongoing visa and travel restrictions between Iran and the United States, the federation chose to base its entire World Cup training camp in Mexico instead. Think about how complicated that becomes. Iran is scheduled to play group stage matches in U.S. cities, including Los Angeles and Seattle, yet the team is training and living in another country. Every match requires players, coaches, medical staff, and support personnel to cross an international border, compete, and then quickly begin the trip back. It's a situation that has raised serious questions and put even more attention on this growing World Cup dispute. There is simply no comparable situation anywhere else in this tournament. Every other qualified nation has been able to establish a base close to its host cities, maintain a steady training routine, and prepare the way international football teams have always expected to prepare. Iran, however, says it has been forced to operate under a completely different set of conditions, not because of football reasons, but because of wider political and diplomatic realities between its country and the tournament's host nation. And this is where the story takes another turn. According to Iran's federation, these restrictions haven't just created inconvenience behind the scenes. They believe the limitations have already affected results on the pitch. Iran opened its World Cup campaign with a 2-2 draw against New Zealand, and head coach Amir Galanway did not hide his frustration. He argued that the disruptions played a role in the outcome and prevented the team from preparing the way the coaching staff originally intended. Under their preferred schedule, Iran planned to arrive in each host city 2 days before every match. That timeline would have allowed players to settle in, train properly, and reach what Galanway described as the best possible technical and physical condition. The squad would then have returned to its base the day after each game, but according to the federation, those plans became impossible under the current travel restrictions. Think about that for a second. A coach who has spent years building preparation methods around proven routines suddenly finds those routines unavailable at the biggest tournament in world football. That's why the federation responded with something much stronger than public criticism. It announced plans to file a formal complaint with FIFA. The wording of that complaint was careful, but the message was clear. Iranian officials argued that the restrictions are inconsistent with the principle of providing equal conditions for all participating teams. They also warned that the situation could continue to affect the team's technical preparation throughout the tournament. And that phrase, equal conditions for participating teams, is really the heart of this entire controversy. A World Cup is supposed to provide a level competitive environment for every nation that earns its place. No, conditions are never perfectly identical. Some teams travel farther than others. Some have larger budgets and stronger domestic leagues. But the expectation is that every country competes under circumstances that are reasonably comparable, allowing football itself to determine the outcome of matches. Iran's position is that a 24-hour entry window, repeated border crossings, and the inability to follow a normal preparation schedule go far beyond the usual differences teams experience. This isn't a complaint about weather, long flights, or unfamiliar stadiums. It's an argument that the fundamental structure of participation has been changed in a way that could directly influence competitive performance. And here's where the story gets even bigger, because Iran's complaint does not exist in a vacuum. It connects to a wider series of access and travel issues that have drawn attention throughout the opening stages of this World Cup. Reports have already surfaced about tournament-related personnel facing entry complications despite holding official credentials. There have also been accounts of supporters from certain participating nations encountering visa difficulties even after purchasing valid match tickets. Iran's federation has additionally claimed that part of its official ticket allocation was withdrawn shortly before its opening match. According to those reports, some supporters who received legitimate Federation-distributed tickets suddenly found themselves unable to use them. When you put all of these developments together, Iran's complaint starts to look like more than just frustration from one national team. It becomes the most visible example yet of a broader controversy that has been building long before the first ball was kicked in this tournament. A pattern keeps showing up in this story, and it all leads back to one major question: who actually gets full access to this World Cup and under what conditions? That's the issue sitting at the center of the debate right now. What's especially important here is that Iran's complaint is not aimed directly at the United States. It's aimed at FIFA. The organization that owns the World Cup writes the tournament rules, awards hosting rights, and is expected to protect competitive fairness across every host nation involved. As of Friday, neither FIFA nor the U.S. Department of Homeland Security had publicly responded to the Federation's complaint, and that silence is becoming a story of its own. Why? Because FIFA has suddenly found itself caught in an uncomfortable position. On one side is the authority of a host nation, on the other is the responsibility FIFA has to every team that fought through years of qualification to earn a place at this tournament. That's a difficult balance, and it's one FIFA may continue facing as this World Cup moves forward. In many ways, this is new territory for the competition. World Cups have always included travel challenges, political tensions, and logistical problems. That's nothing new. But a tournament spread across multiple countries creates situations that previous World Cups never had to deal with. A team based in one country while playing matches in another is a scenario that simply didn't exist when tournaments were held entirely inside a single host nation. If you look at this strictly from a football perspective, the concern becomes easier to understand. Every coach, player, and analyst knows preparation matters at the highest level. Arriving several days early allows a team to adjust to local conditions, train properly, recover from travel, and settle into a routine. Arriving shortly before kickoff and leaving immediately afterward is a completely different experience. That difference may not sound dramatic to casual fans, but at the World Cup level, even small details can influence performance. Iran's coaching staff clearly believes that preparation gap is significant. In fact, they publicly suggested that it affected their opening result. That's a major claim because it places responsibility on circumstances outside the team's control rather than events that happen during the match itself. Now, it's important to separate confirmed facts from unanswered questions. That distinction matters. FIFA has not publicly confirmed or rejected the specific details outlined in Iran's complaint. Likewise, the exact reasons behind the reported restrictions have not been fully explained in public. Whether they stem from existing visa policies, security-related measures, administrative procedures, or some combination of factors remains unclear at this stage. What we do know is much more limited. Iran's federation has issued an official statement. Head coach Amir Galanoui has spoken publicly about the issue, and Iran's World Cup base is located in Mexico rather than the United States, where several of its matches are being played. Those facts are not in dispute. What happens next is still uncertain. Iran has 2 more group stage matches remaining, and the federation says it hopes FIFA will review the situation and address its concerns before the tournament moves deeper into the competition. Whether that happens or not could become one of the most closely watched stories of this World Cup, both on and off the field. At this point, There are only a few realistic ways this situation could move forward. FIFA could decide to work directly with US authorities and try to secure a modified arrangement for Iran's remaining group stage matches, but that would require a level of political and diplomatic coordination that goes far beyond football's normal responsibilities. It's not something FIFA has had to deal with very often, especially during an active World Cup. Another possibility is that FIFA acknowledges a competitive disadvantage exists, but concludes that it has no authority to influence a sovereign nation's immigration policies. In that scenario, Iran would likely continue the rest of the tournament under the same conditions it has already been facing: no major changes, no special accommodations, and no immediate solution. Then there's a third possibility, and some observers believe it may be the most likely of all. The issue could simply remain unresolved. No major ruling, no dramatic intervention, just another controversy added to a growing list of debates that people will still be talking about long after this World Cup is over. If that happens, this story could become part of the tournament's larger legacy rather than a problem that ever receives a clear answer. Of course, none of those outcomes are guaranteed. Right now, everything remains uncertain, and it's worth remembering that FIFA leadership has already faced criticism over other access-related controversies during this tournament. In previous disputes, officials suggested people should, in their own words, chill and relax. That response didn't exactly calm the situation, especially when questions were being raised about tournament access and fairness. Whether that same approach would work when dealing with a formal complaint from an entire national football federation is another matter entirely. This isn't just frustration from a few supporters online. This is an official challenge submitted by a qualified World Cup participant, and that raises the stakes considerably. What's becoming increasingly clear is that this story is no longer just about travel schedules or border crossings. It has evolved into a much larger debate about what a World Cup is supposed to guarantee the nations that earn their place in it. Every team spends years chasing qualification. Players sacrifice countless hours. Coaches build long-term projects. Entire countries celebrate when that final ticket to the tournament is secured. All of that effort comes with a basic expectation that once the competition begins, the playing field will be reasonably fair. No one expects every nation to face identical circumstances. That's impossible. Travel distances differ, budgets differ, facilities differ, but teams do expect a standard level of competitive fairness. Iran is now arguing, formally and publicly, that this expectation has not been met in its case. More importantly, it has placed that argument directly in front of FIFA, the one organization responsible for protecting the integrity of the tournament. For the Iranian players themselves, the challenge goes beyond tactics and match preparation. Imagine having to cross an international border before and after every game. Imagine training in one country while competing in another. Imagine carrying all the normal pressure of representing your nation on football's biggest stage while also dealing with complications that have nothing to do with football at all. That's the reality the team says it is facing. And for Iranian supporters, the frustration may feel just as real. Some fans reportedly secured legitimate tickets only to encounter unexpected complications. Others simply wanted the opportunity to support their team under the same conditions enjoyed by every other nation in the tournament. For them, the disappointment isn't necessarily about results on the scoreboard, it's about whether their team received a fair opportunity from the very beginning. Now the question shifts to you. If a host nation's policies create what a team believes is a measurable competitive disadvantage, should FIFA step in and attempt to find a solution? Or is that completely outside football's authority, regardless of how unfair the situation may appear? Let me know what you think in the comments below, because this debate is far from settled. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with other football fans who are following this World Cup closely. We cover the biggest stories, the biggest controversies, and the biggest moments as they happen. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video, because this story is still developing and football never stays quiet for long.